Imagine waking up to the most terrifying, heart-stopping moment of your life on the exact day you're supposed to become a real adult. That is exactly where Hajime's story begins, eyes wide with utter shock. Out of nowhere, a massive, shockingly confident woman looms directly over him. She has him trapped exactly where she wants him, and trust me, this unexpected encounter is about to change everything. But how did he end up here? Just hours earlier, 22-year-old Hajime Ogami was lying awake in the dark, completely consumed by anxiety about his daunting first day in the real world. Making matters a million times worse, his new job required a massive relocation from the bustling streets of Tokyo all the way to Fukuoka, leaving him utterly isolated. Stranded in a completely unfamiliar city with absolutely no one to back him up, he couldn't help but ask himself, can I actually handle the crushing weight of this new reality? He lets out a heavy, exhausted sigh, the pure stress of the situation visibly dragging him down into despair. Desperate to clear his racing mind, Hajime decides his only option is to step outside into the crisp night air. Standing quietly under the dim moonlight, he gazes out at the sprawling city lights, searching for a brief moment of peace. He slowly settles onto a set of cold stairs, trying to gather his chaotic thoughts amidst the vast urban landscape. After a deep, shaking exhale, a tiny wave of relief washes over him as the cool air begins to soothe his deep-seated anxieties. Suddenly feeling a burst of motivation, he smiles, realizing that nothing beats a refreshing late-night walk to clear your head. Looking at the glowing horizon, he finds comfort in the city lights, whispering to himself that maybe he can survive here after all. He starts to enjoy the unexpected fun of aimlessly exploring, until his eyes lock onto a particularly shady, pitch-black back alley. Drawn to the gritty aesthetic, he snaps a picture of the industrial scene, genuinely thrilled with how cool the shot turns out. But his peace is instantly shattered when that massive woman suddenly appears right beside him, casually agreeing with his taste in industrial fans. Completely startled, he stammers out an explanation. Their eyes meet in a moment of pure, unadulterated surprise. Hajime is completely frozen in shock, while the mysterious woman sports a subtle blush. Terrified, Hajime tumbles completely backward onto the concrete, screaming out to demand who on earth she actually is. The woman casually introduces herself as Usagi Takatsuki, giggling that she's just a friendly neighborhood drunk passing through, before demanding his name. Completely flustered, he manages to introduce himself. Looking at his baby face, Usagi suspiciously asks if he's even old enough to drink. When he confirms he's 22, a curious Hajime turns the question back, asking what she's doing out here alone. Her cheerful mood drops as she reveals her drinking partner completely ditched her, leaving her totally stranded in the dark alleyway. Usagi sighs, explaining that she was so furious she just needed to take a long walk to cool her heated head and clear her thoughts. Admitting her secrets, she confesses that wandering through these empty back alleys is unexpectedly calming in a way she can't quite explain. She takes a slow sip from her drink and smiles warmly, telling Hajime that these nights just feel right. Hajime can only stare, completely mesmerized by her vulnerability. Blushing intensely, Hajime cracks a smile and emphatically tells Usagi that he completely, 100% understands that exact feeling. He opens up, explaining how late-night walks help him escape his anxiety, and how the distant city lights make him feel a little less alone in the world. Usagi stares at him with a soft, genuine blush, nodding along as she agrees that the comfort of the city lights is truly undeniable. Completely overjoyed by their instant connection, Usagi suddenly grabs Hajime in a powerful, crushing hug, burying him against her chest. Hajime screams in absolute shock at the suffocating closeness. As if that weren't enough, she leans in close, whispering to ask if he has any plans for the rest of the night. A completely bewildered Hajime hesitantly admits he doesn't. Under the mysterious glow of the full moon, Usagi smiles mischievously, preparing to make an unforgettable proposition. Looking directly into his eyes with a highly suggestive smirk, she boldly asks him to help her blow off some steam tonight. Hajime's brain completely short-circuits. He panics, demanding to know what exactly she means by blowing off steam, and if he's really supposed to just follow her. Without waiting a single second for his answer, Usagi forcefully grabs his hand and drags him along, sprinting wildly through the city streets. Cut to the immediate aftermath, the aggressive sounds of enthusiastic chomping and munching fill the air as they devour some late-night food. Next stop? A karaoke bar. Usagi belts out a passionate tune, declaring her absolute love for Inuiman with pure gusto, while a traumatized Hajime sits awkwardly behind her. Hajime desperately apologizes, confessing he doesn't know the classic version of the song she wanted, lamenting that the vibe is totally dead. Usagi pouts in dismay, insisting that only the old track is the true choice. Usagi lets out a dramatic sigh, wondering out loud if this massive difference in music taste is what people call a crushing generation gap. Hajime instantly slumps down, feeling the heavy weight of her disappointment as she internally judges him as kind of a letdown. But she's not done yet. Usagi leans in shockingly close, her chest pressing tightly against him as she declares it's time to keep moving, forcing another panicked scream from him. Noticing his intense discomfort, Usagi asks if something is wrong. Hajime quickly brushes it off, lying through his teeth that he's just focusing on picking the next song. That's when reality hits him. He is completely alone in a private, locked room with a gorgeous woman. He blushes furiously, realizing this is actually an absolute dream scenario. He finds himself utterly flustered, his eyes darting everywhere, completely unsure where to look as Usagi beams up at him with pure excitement. Suddenly, Usagi's ample chest presses even closer against him, shattering whatever focus he had left. She urgently tells him to hurry up and pick a track, and a flustered Hajime quickly nods in agreement. Usagi enthusiastically cheers him on, admitting she has no idea what song he picked, but demanding he give it his absolute best effort. But the second the lyrics flash onto the glowing screen, Hajime's soul leaves his body as he realizes exactly what kind of song he chose. It's a fast-paced track filled with intense spoken word and rapid rap sections. He completely panics, finding the entire situation mortifying. As Hajime miserably struggles through the fast lyrics, Usagi relentlessly heckles him, screaming at him to sing from his gut because she can't understand a single word. Hajime is utterly devastated, crying internally that his beautiful dream scenario has officially reversed into the absolute worst nightmare imaginable. Usagi leans in close, teasingly asking if he's getting stage fright, forcing a defeated Hajime to admit he usually only ever does solo karaoke. She completely softens, gently reassuring him to just relax and have fun, even though Hajime bitterly remembers her ruthless teasing from 2 seconds ago. She immediately orders another round of drinks, commanding Hajime to chug his down after noticing his glass is still totally full. As the music blasts through the speakers, Usagi grabs the mic and pours her entire soul into the song, radiating an absolutely electric, infectious energy. Completely breathless, but wearing a massive, beautiful smile, she proudly declares her stress has totally melted away, thanking him for saving her night. Before they head out to pay the bill, Usagi reaches into her purse for her pack, cutely asking if he minds if she sneaks in a quick smoke break first. The duo steps out of the main karaoke room and guides themselves into the establishment's dimly lit, designated smoking lounge. Usagi playfully teases him about the habit, only to gasp in surprise when he pulls out a sleek, modern vape instead of a traditional cigarette. Leaning back against the glass, her expression turns soft as she gently asks what exactly drove him out into the lonely city streets so late at night. Hajime finally opens up, confessing he just relocated from Tokyo for a corporate job, and the crushing anxiety of fitting in was tearing his mind apart. Usagi flashes a knowing, highly mischievous smirk, teasingly pointing out that he seems to be communicating perfectly fine with an attractive woman like her. He blushes intensely, completely unable to argue with her logic, but her face immediately softens to offer some profound adult wisdom. She firmly reminds him to stop sweating the small stuff, assuring him with total confidence that the corporate world is absolutely nothing like high school. In the professional world, you don't need to force yourself to be best friends with everyone. As long as you fulfill your duties, the rest of the day is smooth sailing. Her words hit home instantly, painting a picture of adulthood that feels far less daunting than the impossible mountain he had built up in his head. Hajime looks up with wide, hopeful eyes, softly asking if surviving as an adult is truly that simple, receiving an immediate, confident nod from her. She smiles, insisting there is absolutely no reason to completely reinvent himself or force some fake, mature persona overnight. And then, to his absolute astonishment, Usagi pulls out her phone and smoothly hands over her private, personal contact information. She looks at him gently, telling him that whenever the weight of the world gets too heavy, he has an open invitation to rely on her for a shoulder to lean on. With a heavy, incredibly reassuring pat on his back, she tells him to march into his first day with total confidence, leaving him deeply touched. Generously picking up the entire tab for their wild evening, she commands him to wait outside while she handles the front counter. As she walks away, Hajime stands beneath the dim lights, his mind racing as he tries to process this absolute whirlwind of a night. He looks out into the dark night, feeling an incredible surge of pure gratitude for the chaotic, beautiful soul that stumbled into his life. Thanks to Usagi's unexpected warmth, the terrifying cloud hanging over his move to Fukuoka has completely vanished into thin air. When she finally steps outside to join him, his chest is filled with a newfound courage for the daunting day ahead. But wait, look at her face. The beautiful, sentimental atmosphere is instantly shattered when Usagi's face suddenly contorts into a comically horrified, green grimace. Before he can even ask what's wrong, she frantically rushes past him to the side of the road, pure panic written all over her face. In a spectacular, comedic disaster, the massive amount of alcohol instantly catches up to her, sending her doubling over as she violently purges her stomach onto the pavement. Slumped over in absolute, soul-crushing mortification, she wishes the ground would swallow her whole, while a panicked Hajime tries to stabilize the situation. Wiping away a massive bead of nervous sweat, Usagi looks completely humiliated by how wildly out of hand her cool adult night became. She frantically tries to laugh it off with a cracked voice, desperately assuring him that this kind of absolute chaos is totally normal for her. With her protective composure totally shattered, she sadly confesses that she always puts up a tough, cool front, only to end up looking like a complete disaster. Sinking into a deep emotional spiral right there on the street, she laments that her name truly suits her because just like a fragile rabbit, she feels like she might literally die of loneliness if left alone. Looking down in deep shame, she tearfully apologizes for dumping an absolute mountain of heavy emotional baggage onto a younger guy she literally just met in an alleyway. She lets out a highly erratic, completely manic laugh, totally overwhelmed by her own unpredictable emotional state. Her laughter turns into a dramatic gag, clutching her forehead as she wildly claims she must have broken a wire directly inside her brain. Hajime can only watch in complete, stunned silence, entirely blown away by the sheer speed of her massive mood swings. In that moment, he completely recalculates his entire opinion of her, realizing that far from the ultra-confident, polished mentor he imagined, this woman is a glorious, certified mess. Usagi stares down at the concrete, her voice dropping into a quiet tone of profound desperation, softly wondering why her nights always fall apart like this. With raw, heartbreaking honesty in her eyes, she softly admits that underneath the heavy drinking and loud fronts, she just wants someone genuine to spend her time with. Hajime stands in thoughtful silence, desperately trying to find the perfect words to comfort her after she completely bared her soul to him. Stepping closer with a gentle, reassuring smile, he speaks from the heart, promising her that her presence isn't a burden or an inconvenience to him at all. He goes on to confess that he was actually the one drowning in pure loneliness tonight, and stumbling into her completely turned his world around. Looking her dead in the eyes, Hajime declares that her vibrant, chaotic energy was the exact thing he needed to survive the night. Usagi looks up in pure amazement, completely blindsided by his heartfelt words as a massive blush sweeps across her face. Deeply touched, her eyes glisten with genuine emotion as she processes the realization that her presence truly meant the world to someone. Unable to contain her gratitude, she flashes a massive, radiant smile that completely melts away all the lingering awkwardness of the entire evening. But the quiet street is suddenly broken by a loud, perfectly synchronized growl echoing directly from both of their totally empty stomachs. They share a hilarious moment of mutual embarrassment, realizing all that frantic drinking and singing left them absolutely famished. With a dramatic burst of energy, Usagi points down the street, loudly declaring it is time to hunt down a late-night diner to finish the evening right. They navigate the brightly lit city streets together, matching their paces perfectly as they search the town side by side. Usagi confidently leads the charge toward a vibrant local food market, promising that the open stalls serve the absolute best comfort food in all of Fukuoka. Drawn in by the incredible aromas drifting through the air, they follow their noses through the busy stalls, anticipation building by the second. They slide into a cozy, traditional food stall, immediately finding themselves tightly squeezed together in the intimate layout. Hajime blushes furiously as Usagi's soft shoulder presses directly against his, making it incredibly hard to focus on ordering food. Within minutes, the chef serves up a couple of piping hot, legendary local Hakata ramen bowls, sending clouds of delicious steam into the air. Usagi's eyes light up with pure, unadulterated joy as she gleefully snaps her chopsticks apart, completely ready to devour the entire meal. They happily dig in, the rich flavors hitting perfectly after what had been a long, emotionally exhausting night. Usagi polishes off her entire massive bowl in absolute record time, letting out a blissful sigh of pure culinary satisfaction. Looking across the tight table, Hajime silently watches her eat, feeling a quiet, peaceful warmth settle deep over his chest. The heavy, suffocating anxiety about tomorrow's corporate life has completely vanished, replaced by an incredible sense of comfort. He suddenly realizes that as long as unpredictable, beautiful encounters like this exist in the world, moving to this new city might not be so terrifying after all. They finally step back out into the cool night air, just as the very first hints of dawn slowly paint the early morning horizon. Usagi turns around, bidding him a highly animated, energetic farewell while waving her hand high in the morning air. She commands him to absolutely crush his first day at the office, promising with a wide smile that they will meet up again real soon. Hajime stands beneath the fading street lamps, watching her silhouette disappear into the early dawn mist, his heart filled with a brand new courage. With the morning sun rising over Fukuoka, Hajime takes a deep breath, completely ready to march confidently into his brand new adult life. The real shocker? Ogami-kun's first day on the job takes a terrifying turn when he discovers his brand new corporate boss, Takatsuki-san, is the exact same wild woman he met last night. Talk about an awkward reunion. Takatsuki-san immediately questions his dazed expression, snapping him back to reality as he awkwardly stumbles through his introduction. The office atmosphere instantly becomes tense, confirming his worst fears. Realizing she is all business today, Ogami-kun resolves to focus entirely on his work, determined to keep their wild encounter separate from his professional life. He steels himself to perform his best. Takatsuki-san praises his speed and encourages him to maintain his momentum while greeting another colleague. Ogami-kun responds with a flustered yes, trying his best to keep up. She then casually informs him that she has already organized all the heavy meeting materials, leaving him completely baffled. How did she find the time to finish that so quickly? Takatsuki-san gracefully answers a client call, thanking the person on the other end for their hard work as she moves swiftly through the office. She confidently agrees to take on the exact same project next month, demonstrating her effortless capability even while managing a massive workload. When a colleague expresses being completely stuck, Takatsuki-san immediately offers her assistance with a warm smile, ready to solve the problem. Ogami-kun observes her efficiency, noting how she manages to train a rookie, handle her own massive projects, and still check in on everyone. He concludes she is undeniably the ace of the office. He reflects on her impressive professionalism, utterly unable to reconcile her current brilliant demeanor with their wild first encounter. He marvels at her unexpected confidence. Suddenly, his phone buzzes with a private message from Takatsuki-san, instructing him to meet her at the 15th floor outdoor smoking area during lunch break. What could she want? Nervously, Ogami-kun peeks around the concrete corner, confirming he has arrived at the designated 15th floor smoking area. Takatsuki-san suddenly appears out of nowhere, leaning in shockingly close and startling Ogami-kun with an enthusiastic welcome to the company. Ogami-kun sweats nervously as she presses him, subtly asking if he has kept their previous wild encounter a total secret from the rest of the staff. After confirming his absolute silence, Takatsuki-san visibly relaxes, adjusting her tie with a massive, dramatic sigh of relief. As she lights a cigarette, she begins listing various strict types of modern workplace harassment, while Ogami-kun internally panics, believing his career was almost over before it began. Takatsuki-san explains that companies are now incredibly strict about compliance, a sentiment Ogami-kun readily agrees with, having heard similar corporate horror stories. She complains that people are far too sensitive about minor social issues these days, leaving Ogami-kun to quietly ponder her words. Carefully considering her point, Ogami-kun begins to formulate a dramatic conclusion to protect them both. Ogami-kun firmly suggests they avoid being alone together entirely, explaining it would be terrible if others got the wrong impression of their relationship. His proposal to keep their distance at work completely catches Takatsuki-san off guard, her eyes widening in disbelief. But before he can even explain himself, she instantly bursts into a flood of massive, highly dramatic tears. She furiously pounds on his chest, loudly accusing him of hating her and lying about everything they shared. Ogami-kun panics, desperately trying to de-escalate her explosive misunderstanding. He quickly clarifies that he only meant keeping their distance while they are physically inside the office walls. He reassures her that hanging out outside of work is a completely different story. Her crying stops instantly as she looks up, her tear-filled eyes desperately seeking confirmation that he is being 100% sincere. Clasping her hands together with a soft blush, she cutely asks if that means they can hang out again today. Completely flustered by her incredibly intense gaze, Ogami-kun can only stammer out his immediate agreement. Overjoyed by his response, Takatsuki-sen crouches down to hide her giggles as she literally trembles with pure excitement. Suddenly, she leaps into the air with an explosive cheer, completely catching him off guard. But get ready, because the mood is about to flip. Just as quickly, her cheerful mood vanishes, and she grabs him with a terrifyingly intense stare. What wild, unpredictable demands is she about to make next? Takatsuki sighs in massive relief, realizing she almost crossed a major compliance boundary with her emotional outburst. Ogami stands by, completely drained by the roller coaster. Clearing her throat loudly, she quickly regains her corporate composure and sheepishly admits that she completely lost her cool. She enthusiastically rallies him to get back to work so they can finish their first real day strong. As the long corporate workday finally comes to an end, the main office lights click off, signaling freedom. Walking out of the building, Takatsuki happily praises his performance on his very first day. Meanwhile, Ogami feels completely exhausted from the non-stop mental stress. To reward his hard work, Takatsuki treats him to a hidden local ramen shop for some authentic, legendary Hakata soul food. The two sit down together in the cozy restaurant, ready to finally relax after a chaotic afternoon. A steaming, beautiful bowl of rich tonkatsu ramen is placed on the table, instantly capturing Ogami's full attention. Takatsuki ties her hair back in preparation, excitedly noting that a stronger, deeper aroma always means a much richer flavor. Taking his first hot bite, Ogami's eyes light up as the incredible flavor completely blows his mind. Takatsuki eagerly dives in right after him, happily slurping up her very first bite of the rich, steaming soup. The incredible flavor instantly melts away her corporate exhaustion, leaving her completely blissed out after their long day. Curious about his life outside of work, Takatsuki asks what he does at home, prompting a sheepish Ogami to admit he usually sticks to solo hobbies. He confesses his secret obsession with sewing, a delicate hobby that leaves her thoroughly impressed by his incredible dexterity. But when Ogami asks about her own personal hobbies, a sudden wave of intense heat washes over Takatsuki. Sweating from the hot ramen soup, she reaches up and quickly pulls her tight necktie completely loose. She pops open her top collar button to cool down, blushing as she ponders how exactly to answer him. Takatsuki reveals her hardcore routine of lifting heavy weights and visiting convenience stores to buy nothing but alcohol and tobacco. She suddenly looks incredibly depressed, softly admitting she only spends time alone because she doesn't have any actual friends. Flashing a warm smile, Ogami reaches out and promises they will find fun new things to do together. But is her heart actually ready for this sudden leap in intimacy? Thrilled for their future, Takatsuki excitedly pumps her fists, completely unaware that her tight shirt buttons are straining to their absolute limit. Suddenly, a button snaps off and flies right past a stunned Ogami, exposing her chest in an instant. Oh my goodness. Blushing furiously, Takatsuki looks down in utter embarrassment as the reality of her wardrobe malfunction fully sinks in. She descends into a full-blown panic, wondering if she ate too much ramen, while Ogami desperately tries to calm her down, claiming it was just a loose thread. Tears well up in Takatsuki's eyes as she suddenly remembers his secret hobby. She looks at him, realizing he might be her absolute only hope. Pointing directly to her popped, exposed collar, she desperately begs Ogami to sew her shirt back together right this exact second. Ogami completely freezes in absolute shock, his entire brain short-circuiting at her sudden and highly intimate request. Leaning in closer, she urgently demands he hurry up, leaving him with absolutely zero time to mentally prepare for what's next. Armed with a cheap sewing kit from a nearby dollar store, Ogami struggles to focus while a blushing Takatsuki nervously begs him to stop staring so intensely. But with the target sitting directly in front of his face, how on earth is Ogami supposed to look away? His senses are completely overwhelmed by the intense proximity, the sweet scent, and the sweat of Takatsuki's exposed chest. A highly compromising position only makes things a million times worse, leaving both of them completely flustered in the narrow alleyway. Ogami desperately tries to quiet his racing thoughts, chanting to himself to stay calm and focus entirely on the needle. As Ogami begs her to stay still, Takatsuki complains about the exhausting pose and playfully asks if he is thinking about something weird right now. With a final, frantic stitch, Ogami successfully finishes the job, earning a bright smile and enthusiastic praise from a deeply relieved Takatsuki. A massive wave of relief washes over Ogami as he humbly expresses how glad he is that he could help. Insisting on paying him back despite his polite protests, Takatsuki suddenly comes up with what she thinks is the perfect idea to show her gratitude. She casually invites him over to her private apartment tomorrow, catching Ogami completely off guard. Ogami's mind immediately races to wild, scandalous scenarios of private nighttime training sessions, sending his panic levels straight through the roof. Takatsuki Innocent suggests playing card games or staying up late to talk about their secret crushes, leaving Ogami wondering if this is just a middle school sleepover. But is he truly prepared for what actually awaits him? Suddenly, Takatsuki completely shifts the tone of the conversation, her expression twisting into a highly mischievous grin. She playfully licks her finger, teasingly promising that a special surprise is waiting for him at her place. Ogami gulps hard, his imagination immediately running completely wild. Before he can press for details, she places a quiet finger to her lips, keeping the entire surprise a total, agonizing mystery. With a playful shove, she tells him to simply look forward to tomorrow, leaving him completely at her mercy. She gestures boldly to her own body, declaring that it is finally her turn to take full charge of him. Flashing a brilliant smile surrounded by floating hearts, Takatsuki promises to give Ogami the absolute VIP treatment. Ogami's heart races as his expectations soar straight through the roof. As his mind spirals with wild ideas of what this VIP treatment could possibly mean, he is left completely terrified of what awaits him tomorrow. What exactly does she have in store for him? Only 2 days into his new office job, Owagami's life is already moving at an absolute breakneck speed. He stands outside Miyako's apartment door, completely overwhelmed by the reality that he is about to enter a woman's home. Owagami sweats profusely as his mind imagines a cute, pristine bedroom filled with stuffed animals and sweet feminine charm. Miyako swings the door open with a bright, welcoming smile, warmly inviting him inside. But the absolute exact second Owagami steps inside, he is greeted by a literal mountain of trash, discarded clothes, and absolute chaos. He stares in absolute, horrified silence, unable to believe that this disaster zone actually belongs to a woman. Miyako sheepishly apologizes for having absolutely zero floor space. Owagami tries to claim it's fine, though he is completely distracted by a giant carrot cushion. Miyako tells him to make himself comfortable, but Owagami's eyes widen in sheer horror as she suddenly drops her pants right in front of him. She continues chatting casually about her failed plans to clean, completely unbothered as she slides her shirt right off her muscular shoulders. She explains how tired she was, reaching back to unclip her bra and leaving Owagami utterly paralyzed by what she might do next. Owagami completely panics as his gorgeous senior suddenly stands before him entirely stripped of her outer clothes. Terrified, Owagami demands to know if this scandalous display is the special treat she promised, while Miyako signals she is just getting ready. Miyako suddenly blushes furiously, finally realizing her mistake and quickly apologizing for her shameless lack of modesty. She laughs, explaining that stripping down the exact second she gets home is simply a hard habit to break. But as she tries to step out of her tangled trousers, absolute disaster strikes. Her feet catch in the messy fabric, sending her crashing hard onto the floor with a painful, loud groan. Owagami screams in pure panic, desperately asking if his clumsy senior is even all right. Muffled against the floor, Miyako whimpers that she cannot get up and begs Owagami to help her up. After finally getting changed into tight athletic wear, a flushed Miyako sheepishly admits the entire ordeal was incredibly embarrassing. Owagami tries to play it cool, but his racing heart begs the question, how on earth will he survive the rest of the night? Owagami can only stare in disbelief as he realizes her tight athletic shorts leave absolutely nothing to the imagination. Shaking off her embarrassment, Miyako cheerfully promises to cook him a delicious, home-cooked meal to make amends. But her cooking plans immediately screech to a halt when they look at the disgusting, trash-filled kitchen sink. Realizing she has to clean up first, Miyako casually pulls out a cigarette and lights it right there. Owagami immediately loses his mind and screams, demanding to know why she is smoking instead of actually cleaning. Owagami stares back with dead eyes as Miyako casually explains that she needs to blow off some steam before starting her chores. Her idea of blowing off steam is testing how many cigarettes she can stack onto a mountain of ash, sending Owagami into a total panic. Driven to his absolute limit by her chaotic lifestyle, Owagami collapses against Miyako and groans that he cannot take this anymore. Begging her to let him clean, Owagami furiously scrubs the sink and bags the trash, only to freeze in sheer horror when he accidentally picks up her lace bra. Within minutes, the apartment is sparkling clean, but this sudden domestic breakthrough might be leading Owagami into a whole new set of dangerous temptations. After Owagami works his magic, the entire kitchen shines like a brand new showroom. Miyako rewards his hard work with an incredibly close hug, sending his heart rate into overdrive. True to her word, Miyako takes charge of the stove to whip up her special dinner. She immediately fumbles with the heat, making Owagami seriously question if they will survive this meal. While waiting, Owagami does some quick mental math about the underwear he found earlier. He realizes Miyako is sporting a massive H-cup, shattering his concentration completely. The food finally arrives, and the simple Chinese combo actually looks and smells incredible. Miyako defensively warns him not to judge her simple plating. Owagami ignores the warning and takes a massive, hopeful bite. The bold flavors instantly blow him away, earning Miyako a genuine compliment that makes her beam with pride. To wash down the heavy meal, she cracks open a cold can of premium beer. With the plates cleared, Miyako slyly announces it is finally time for the mysterious special treat she promised him earlier. What kind of dangerous temptation is she about to reveal? Owagami's heart races as he remembers the special treat Miyako promised him next. Miyako tells him to wait patiently while she gets ready, prompting Owagami's imagination to run wild with thoughts of a bunny suit party. Miyako proudly reveals a massive hookah to Owagami. She explains she prepared it because she remembered his interest in vaping. Owagami stares in absolute disbelief, completely caught off guard by her wholesome yet unexpected choice. Seeing his frozen expression, Miyako immediately panics and worries she made a terrible mistake. Owagami quickly reassures her, admitting he has always wanted to try hookah but felt too intimidated to start. Miyako bursts into tears of relief, holding up her phone. She is overjoyed that her incredibly expensive, drunken impulse purchase is finally paying off. Miyako takes the first puff and passes the hose over, guiding Owagami as he takes a hesitant inhale. Thick clouds fill the room as both of them sink into the couch, fully enjoying their relaxing session. Miyako suddenly demands he drop the formal titles and call her by her first name, raising the stakes of their intimacy to a whole new level. Owagami hesitates at the sudden demand, but Miyako takes another slow drag from her hookah, waiting for his answer. Miyako blocks the door with her arms crossed, declaring that he will not be allowed to leave tonight unless he uses her first name. Owagami panics at the sudden house arrest. Owagami's mind instantly races to a scandalous scenario where staying completely silent means spending the entire night together in her bed. He desperately weighs his options, paralyzed by the sudden dilemma. Back in reality, Miyako stares him down in absolute silence until Owagami finally cracks under the pressure. He tries to compromise with a formal version of her name, but Miyako immediately pouts in disappointment, leaving him clutching his knees in agony. Blushing furiously, Owagami finally musters up the courage to say her name properly, causing Miyako's face to instantly light up with pure joy. Overjoyed by the breakthrough, Miyako lunges forward and grabs his face, demanding he look her in the eye and repeat it. Inches away from her face, Owagami weakly mutters her name once more as his heart beats out of his chest. Miyako eagerly demands one more repetition, prompting Owagami to completely lose his composure and scream her name at the top of his lungs. Completely satisfied with her victory, Miyako flashes a triumphant smile, but how will Owagami survive the rest of this dangerously intimate night? Sweating from the intense encounter, Owagami decides it is finally time to make his escape. As he heads down the hallway, Miyako bids him a casual farewell, catching him completely off guard. He quickly grabs his belongings from the couch, eager to escape the suffocating tension of her apartment. Suddenly, a shocking realization hits Owagami as he wonders why he didn't get to hear his own first name. He violently shakes his head, instantly scolding himself for harboring such ridiculously intimate expectations. Standing before her revealing outfit, Owagami laments that he is the only one acting like a blushing mess. Forcing a polite smile, Owagami bids her a formal goodnight and promises to see her tomorrow. Just as the door begins to close, Miyako flashes a dazzling smile and softly whispers his first name. The door clicks shut, leaving Owagami standing alone in the quiet hallway as the silence settles in. His heart thumps violently against his chest as he collapses to the floor, completely overwhelmed by her final parting shot. How will Owagami ever look her in the eye again after this devastating blow to his heart? Hajime and his senior coworker Usagi find a quiet escape together on a secluded stair landing. Looking at her terrible diet, Hajime asks if she is truly okay eating processed convenience food for lunch. Usagi immediately gets defensive about his sudden questioning. Usagi proudly displays her collection of energy jellies and supplement drinks, insisting she has found the ultimate scientifically balanced meal. Hajime can only stare back with a completely exhausted and unconvinced expression. Usagi quickly deflects by criticizing Hajime's homemade bento, pointing out his humble leftovers as the truly bizarre lunch. Hajime ignores the tease and happily takes a bite, reminding her that home cooking is far better for one's long-term health. Usagi lights a cigarette and warns him that health talk is strictly forbidden for anyone who has already crossed into their 30s. But when Hajime asks if she can even pass her next company physical, she visibly panics. To prove him wrong, Usagi lifts her shirt to reveal a set of incredibly shredded, rock-hard abs. However, Hajime instantly shuts her down by asking about the state of her actual internal organs. Defeated and pouting, Usagi demands that Hajime start packing a daily lunch for her as well. She commands him to take full responsibility for her well-being, and a defeated Hajime reluctantly agrees, completely missing her celebratory smirk. Just as Hajime thinks he has the upper hand, Usagi grabs his wrist and eats a bite of his food. As Hajime grumbles about charging her for the stolen ingredients, the stairwell door suddenly swings wide open. Their manager, Nagar Hibaim, steps through the doorway and expresses her surprise at finding them there. Hibaim questions why the pair is hiding out on the stairs when the cafeteria is located downstairs. With a knowing look in her slit pupil eyes, the manager asks if she is interrupting their private moment. Usagi immediately breaks into a nervous sweat and lies that she was only giving Hajime an office tour. Hibaim laughs off the tension, teasing them that she is simply thrilled to see them getting along so well. She strikes a playful pose and proudly introduces herself to Hajime as the self-proclaimed idol of the office. Hajime's eyes widen in horror as he notices a massive, realistic stag beetle hanging directly from her earlobe. Hibaim cheerfully explains that the beetles are actually real taxidermy earrings, sending a terrified, bug-hating Usagi cowering behind Hajime. Will Hajime be able to survive this bizarre workplace dynamic? Nagar Hibaim explains that her decades-long obsession with fashion drives her to seek out bizarre accessories. Beside her, Hajime quietly questions if wearing dead beetles is even legal, earning a sharp scolding from Usagi. Unfazed, Hibaim flashes a brilliant smile and praises Hajime, claiming that attentive men are always popular with ladies. Hajime can only offer a weak, exhausted response before desperately trying to change the subject. Seizing the moment, Hibaim clasps her hands together and cheerfully invites them out for Friday night drinks. Usagi immediately tries to decline the invitation by citing modern workplace boundaries. However, Hibaim relentlessly pushes back, calling it a rare opportunity to drink with a beautiful woman. Suddenly, Hajime pumps his fist and enthusiastically accepts the invitation to go out. Usagi freezes in complete, wide-eyed shock at Hajime's sudden and unexpected betrayal. Smiling warmly, Hajime explains that a night out is the perfect chance for some team bonding. Looking down, a blushing Hajime gently tugs Usagi's sleeve and admits he only wants to go if she joins. Her heart completely melts, and a blushing Usagi finally gives in to his request. But with this bizarre trio headed out for drinks, what kind of chaotic trouble awaits them on Friday night? Hibaim excitedly asks where they should go as they head out of the office together. Inside the elevator, Usagi suggests hitting up some local food stalls. Hibaim enthusiastically agrees, pointing them toward the lively Nakasu area for their Friday night outing. But their plans hit an immediate roadblock as the doors slide open to reveal a massive, suffocating crowd. Before they can even react, the surging tide of busy commuters sweeps directly into the cramped elevator. In an instant, Hajime finds himself completely sandwiched between the two well-endowed women as the elevator packs tight. Trapped in a literal wall of flesh, Hajime desperately gasps for air as his face is buried deep. Usagi frantically apologizes and begs Hajime to hold on, while he can only muffle his sheer panic. Once they finally escape the crowd, a breathless Hajime collapses while Hibaim cheerfully laughs off the chaotic ordeal. Night falls over the city, and the bright lights of the Nakasa district reflect beautifully off the water. Finally settled at a food stall, the trio clinks their beer mugs together, completely unaware of the chaos to come. Settling into the bustling food stall, Hajime finds himself crammed into another dangerously tight squeeze. Sandwiched tightly between the energetic Usagi and their intimidating manager, Hibaim, Hajime can barely even breathe. Talk about an awkward workspace dynamic. A mouth-watering feast of local delicacies quickly fills their table, leaving Hajime amazed by the sheer variety of dishes. Hibime playfully teases Usagi for her picky eating habits after she greedily polishes off 2 entire bowls of fried ramen by herself. Determined to help her eat healthier, Hajime offers a plate of steamed root vegetables, but Usagi immediately rejects them. When Hajime points out the irony of a literal rabbit hating root vegetables, Usagi defensively snaps back that her name has absolutely nothing to do with her diet. Refusing to back down, Hajime playfully tries to force-feed her the vegetable, completely shocking Hibime with his sudden boldness. Hibime bursts into hysterical laughter, teasing Hajime that he behaves exactly like Usagi's overprotective mother. The sudden tease freezes both of them completely in place, leaving Usagi with the vegetable stuffed in her mouth as Hibime notes how incredibly close they look. Flustered, Usagi pulls Hajime's head directly into her chest as an excuse, but Hibime's mischievous smirk suggests she might try to steal him away next. Hibime aggressively pulls Hajime close to her instead, suggesting they get even more friendly with each other. Usagi stares in absolute horror, pointing out that her boss is currently crossing the line into blatant sexual harassment. When Usagi asks if physical touch is the real secret to bonding, the boss vehemently denies ever saying such a thing. Usagi desperately pulls Hajime right back into her chest, demanding that the boss give her man back. But the boss refuses to yield, complaining that Usagi is being completely unfair by hogging him all to herself. The chaotic struggle intensifies, leaving Hajime completely trapped and unable to even reach his food while the 2 women argue. As the night progresses, the boss finally waves goodbye, loudly announcing her plan to hit a few more bars solo. Hajime watches her leave, clearly baffled by her relentless energy and wondering if she is honestly always like this. Hajime cautiously asks if Usagi is mad at him, but she puffs out her cheeks and insists she is perfectly fine. Hajime stammers in utter confusion, wondering why her mood shifted so suddenly, but she shuts him down before he can press any further. Usagi crouches in distress, secretly fearing that Hajime's growing intimacy with others will eventually lead him to abandon her. With tears streaming down her face, Usagi finally confesses that she has just been feeling so incredibly lonely. Hajime offers comfort, promising her that she has absolutely nothing to fear, but his gentle words leave her completely stunned. Hajime smiles warmly, looking her in the eyes and telling her she is someone truly special to him. Overcome with raw emotion, Usagi tearfully declares that the 2 of them will be completely inseparable from this moment on. Without warning, Usagi pulls Hajime into a forceful, incredibly tight embrace, leaving him completely breathless. Usagi darkly warns Hajime that she will hold him to his promise and make him deeply regret it if he is lying to her. As she walks away into the night, Hajime is left questioning if that intense physical contact was actually a real hug. Hajime stands frozen in total disbelief, frantically replaying the encounter in his head and wondering if he really was just hugged like that. Hajime stares blankly at her departing back, completely baffled by the highly cryptic interaction that just occurred. But the boss suddenly returns out of nowhere and catches Hajime off guard, leaving him paralyzed with embarrassment as he realizes how far he has let things go. He wonders if his professional boundaries have finally crumbled for good and what kind of insane misunderstanding this will cause next. Hajime enjoys his first weekend as a working adult by sleeping until noon. Reflecting on the whirlwind of the past week, Hajime is suddenly interrupted by a persistent incoming call from Usagi. Hajime panics, his mind racing as he wonders why he said such intimate things to her during their last meeting. He tentatively answers the phone, his voice trembling as he greets her, completely caught off guard by the sudden contact. Usagi cheerfully responds, her upbeat energy instantly filling the line as she asks what he is currently doing. Hajime admits he just woke up and asks how she is, trying to keep his composure while he feels his heart racing. Usagi teases him, claiming she is hanging out on her balcony buck naked, leaving Hajime completely stunned and speechless. She quickly laughs off her own joke, clarifying she is actually just wearing underwear, which barely eases Hajime's growing anxiety. Usagi continues to toy with him, claiming she knows exactly what kind of dirty thoughts are currently running through his head. Hajime desperately pleads with her to stop messing with him, while Usagi just laughs at his frantic, embarrassed reaction. Usagi checks in on Hajime, asking if he has any free time to spare later today. Hajime is caught off guard by the sudden offer, but he eagerly agrees to go work up a sweat with her. The pair meets up at a public park, standing before the facility restrooms to start their intense training session. Hajime is already struggling to keep up, panting heavily as he admits he cannot continue this grueling pace anymore. Usagi remains energetic and unbothered, teasing him for already wanting to quit after just 2 miles of running. Exhausted and defeated, Hajime collapses onto a park bench, leaving Usagi to loom over his prone form. Usagi mocks his lack of stamina, noting that for someone who talks so much about health, he looks incredibly scrawny. Hajime wipes the sweat from his brow, smiling as he claims it feels good to finally get back into a workout routine. Usagi flashes a bright, determined grin, gesturing for him to get back on his feet and continue the session. Hajime freezes in confusion, wondering what she could possibly mean by moving on to the next one. Usagi pulls Hajime up from the bench, insisting that they move to a new spot. They arrive at the local track, a wide and empty arena perfect for their training. Hajime remarks that he has never visited a track before, surprised that it is open to the public. Usagi mentions the cheap entry fee, keeping the mood light as they prepare. Usagi drops into a sprinter's crouch, telling Hajime she is heading out for a few laps. She commands Hajime to sit tight and watch her closely while he catches his breath. Usagi confirms she is ready to go, her posture focused entirely on the track ahead. She explodes into a sprint, leaving Hajime completely stunned by her raw speed. Usagi slows down and looks back over her shoulder, checking on her partner. Hajime stares in awe, praising her incredible speed. Usagi modestly claims she was a former track star, though she feels out of shape now, which Hajime quickly denies. Hajime beams with genuine excitement, telling Usagi that watching her run was truly cool. Usagi blushes, brushing off Hajime's praise with a modest, bashful smile. Hajime suddenly finds a new surge of energy, stripping off his jacket as he prepares to run again. With a determined shout, Hajime launches himself into a sprint, fully committed to the challenge. Usagi watches him go, her face lighting up with intense excitement as she cheers him on. But the strain of the track quickly catches up to Hajime, his heavy breathing echoing in the quiet air. Hajime collapses onto the track, his body completely spent from the grueling pace. His eyes flutter open, revealing he has regained consciousness after his sudden physical failure. Usagi hovers over him in a panic, checking to see if he has recovered from his collapse. Overcome with guilt, Usagi begins to cry, blaming herself for pushing him beyond his physical limits. Hajime struggles to comfort her, desperate to ease her sorrow despite his own exhaustion. Usagi tears up as she asks Hajime if he truly enjoys their time together. Hajime quickly reassures her, his face bright with sincerity as he confirms he loves their outings. They sit together, Usagi expressing how much she genuinely values his companionship. Hajime feels relieved, admitting he feared he was just a burden to her. Usagi continues to cry, moved by his honesty. Usagi wipes her eyes and asks if he would join her for an outing to a place she has chosen. Hajime grabs her hand, enthusiastically agreeing to go with her tomorrow. Usagi beams, realizing this is a date, while Hajime grins in pure delight. Suddenly, Hajime winces, his face twisted in pain as his body fails him. Hajime struggles to stand, his legs shaking uncontrollably as his strength completely gives out. Usagi laughs, declaring she will simply carry him home herself to save him the trouble. Hajime flushes deep red, desperate to escape the mortifying bridal carry as he pleads for a different method. Usagi obliges, effortlessly shifting Hajime into a piggyback position while he stammers in sheer embarrassment. Buried against her, Hajime protests that this new arrangement is even worse than the first. Usagi laughs off his complaints, teasing that his weight makes for excellent training as she carries him home. Hajime confirms he feels much better, settling into the rhythm of the journey home. Hajime smiles, offering a bashful thanks for the ride once they finally reach his doorstep. Usagi flexes her arm with a wink, brushing off the effort as if it were nothing at all. They share a final, cheerful wave as they prepare to part ways for the night. The door slams shut, but Hajime freezes in his tracks when he realizes Usagi is walking right in behind him. Hajime panics, eyes wide as he demands to know why she is following him inside his own home. Usagi winks at Hajime, suggesting it would be much easier if she just stayed the night at his place. She insists they are all set since she packed a change of clothes, leaving a flustered Hajime to reluctantly accept the situation. Usagi smiles warmly, clearly thrilled that they will be sleeping in the same room tonight. Hajime stares back in total shock, his face burning as he wonders how he could possibly sleep with her so close. Usagi hops right into the shower, clearly loving every second of this, while Hajime realizes with a sinking feeling that he's officially stuck with her for the rest of the night. With only one tiny apartment and a single futon to share, Hajime finds himself backed into an absolutely impossible corner. He just stares at his drink in a total panic, absolutely terrified that he won't get a single wink of sleep with Usagi lying so close by. Suddenly, Usagi calls out to him from behind the curtain, her voice light and teasing as she gets ready to change. Hajime flushes bright red, stuttering over his words as he desperately tries to process her casual little request for privacy. Usagi tells him to look away while she changes, her voice softening just a bit as she directs him to give her some space. Hajime quickly turns his back, squeezing his eyes shut as he tries his best to ignore the soft sounds of movement coming from the bathroom. Every little rustle of fabric echoes through the tiny room, leaving poor Hajime trembling as he wonders what on earth is happening right behind him. Suddenly, Hajime jumps as he feels a soft hand touch his shoulder, his heart racing into overdrive as he fears the absolute worst. But it's just Usagi emerging in his oversized pajamas, beaming with a bright, cheerful smile as she thanks him for the gear, completely oblivious to his massive internal meltdown. Hajime just stares ahead in a complete daze, his brain struggling to process the chaotic, beautiful scene unfolding right in front of him. Usagi offers to use the hairdryer, but decides to towel-dry her hair first so she doesn't make too much noise. Hajime watches, completely flustered as he tries to hold on to any shred of his composure. Then, Usagi casually announces her intention to shower, leaving Hajime scrambling for words in the sudden, awkward silence that follows. Usagi strikes a playful little pose, pointing out that her towel looks exactly like a scorpion. Hajime can only watch, completely drained by her relentless, cute energy. Hajime mutters that it actually looks more like a fried shrimp, making Usagi burst into a fit of laughter at his unexpected comment. Usagi finds the comparison totally hilarious and decides to accept it, clearly loving this rare, light-hearted moment between them. Hajime lets out a soft sigh of relief, just grateful that Usagi is acting like her usual, unpredictable self again. But panic sets right back in when he looks around, suddenly realizing that Usagi has completely vanished from his sight. Hajime reaches for the shower controls in a total frenzy, accidentally unleashing a blast of freezing cold water. He gasps in shock, completely jolted by the icy spray. Shivering under the icy water, Hajime realizes this sudden shock might be exactly what he needs to clear his completely overwhelmed mind. A bit later, Usagi lounges comfortably, smoke drifting from her cigarette as she settles into the quiet evening. Hajime approaches, offering a polite little greeting as he steps back into the room. He extends a cold beer toward her, wordlessly offering to share a drink. They sit close together, sharing a drink in the dim light as the lingering tension between them begins to melt into a cozy, comfortable rhythm. They talk about how exhausting work can be, and Usagi gently checks in on him, asking if he's finally adjusting to his new life. Usagi crushes her cigarette, offering a sweet, reassuring promise to always be there whenever he runs into trouble. She beams at him with an encouraging smile, proudly declaring that she can handle absolutely anything he needs. Hajime smiles back, feeling a wave of relief wash over him as he agrees to rely on her strength. But the mood suddenly shifts when Usagi suggests it's time to call it a night, because she has one final request before they sleep. Usagi turns around and demands that Hajime dry her hair for her, leaving him totally stunned by her sudden closeness. Hajime carefully dries her hair, secretly marveling at how unbelievably soft and beautiful it feels to the touch. Usagi teases him, a bit surprised by his sudden, earnest compliments and playfully wondering what brought all this on. Hajime tries to describe the unique, golden luster of her hair, but his awkward little comparison leaves Usagi utterly confused and blushing. Realizing his blunder, Hajime instantly fumbles for words, hoping to fix his clumsy comment before things get any weirder. He ends up comparing the lovely glow of her hair to a precious gemstone, catching Usagi completely off guard. Usagi accepts the sweet compliment with a smile, confirming that her hair is perfectly dry and ready for bed. The two of them wind down in the bathroom, brushing their teeth side by side in a quiet, domestic little rhythm. Hajime tries to maintain some proper boundaries, offering to sleep out in the hallway away from the bedroom. He gestures to the futon, insisting that Usagi should take the comfortable spot all to herself. Usagi stares back at him in complete shock, completely unable to comprehend why he would choose to sleep somewhere else. Usagi suddenly bursts into tears, demanding that they just sleep together instead of wasting time with silly boundaries. Hajime stammers in protest, clearly incredibly nervous about this sudden twist in the plans. Usagi snaps at him, asking if he really detests the idea of sharing a bed with her that much. Sweating profusely, Hajime tries to explain his hesitation but finds himself completely tongue-tied. Usagi brushes his concerns aside completely, insisting there's absolutely nothing wrong with them sharing a bed. She makes herself comfortable on the futon, firmly patting the spot right next to her for Hajime. Hajime hesitates for just a second before finally giving in, reluctantly joining her on the mattress. They share a quiet moment, Usagi smiling softly while Hajime looks away with a completely flushed, bashful expression. Usagi loses patience with his shyness, physically pulling him around so he's forced to face her. Hajime confesses that he's been an absolute nervous wreck ever since she got here, making it impossible to look her in the eyes. Usagi is completely overwhelmed, her own face flushing as she finds Hajime just a little too adorable to handle. She reaches out to playfully ruffle his hair, unable to contain her affection for the flustered boy. They lie there together, the sheer intimacy of the moment catching both of them completely off guard. Usagi stares at him with wide eyes, while Hajime struggles to process her sudden, breathless closeness. She admits she's feeling incredibly comfortable, her mind going totally blank as her heart races. Hajime tries his best to maintain his composure, but the close physical contact leaves him completely breathless. Usagi demands to know why he's being so quiet, grabbing his head to force his attention entirely on her. They share a warm, close embrace, both finding the contact surprisingly soothing despite all their initial nerves. Usagi finally drifts off to sleep with a content little smile, while Hajime watches her, quietly wondering about her unpredictable nature. Even in her sleep, Usagi's hand lingers on Hajime, leaving him wide-eyed and completely trapped in the tension. Usagi pulls Hajime even closer, showering him with affection as she playfully nuzzles her face against his. As the night deepens, Usagi drifts into a peaceful sleep while holding Hajime tight. But just as her eyes close, something shifts in the dark shadows of the room, threatening to shatter their quiet moment. A fresh new morning arrives, signaling a much-needed end to all of yesterday's hectic drama. Hajime slowly wakes up on his futon, rubbing his eyes while trying to get a handle on the day ahead. Suddenly, Usagi leans right in, pressing her chest straight into Hajime's face and leaving the poor guy completely paralyzed with shock. Usagi greets him with a cheerful morning shout, her smile absolutely bright and bursting with energy. She playfully pins Hajime down, telling him to hurry up and change already so they can finally head out the door. Usagi proudly shows off her new outfit, asking Hajime if she looks sharp and ready to take on the world. Hajime just stares in total disbelief at her daring choice of clothing, completely overwhelmed by the whole situation. Usagi decides to leave her belongings right there, promising to pick them up the next time they meet up. Before long, they arrive at a massive, bustling shopping center just as the sun begins to climb high into the sky. Hajime leads the way, explaining that he really felt like doing something outdoorsy today as they stroll along together. Usagi excitedly suggests they head straight to the famous Senbutsu limestone caves for their big outing. She reads the sign out loud, noting with a smile that the caves are actually open year-round and fully lit up with electricity. Hajime enthusiastically agrees with her choice, thinking the whole idea of exploring a cave sounds pretty awesome. Usagi giggles and admits her absolute love for dark, cramped spaces, making Hajime tease her about acting just like a little rabbit. Suddenly, Usagi suggests taking the Shinkansen to Kitakyushu to get there in a swift 15 minutes, leaving Hajime hesitating at the sudden, rapid pace of her plan. Usagi spins around, urging him to hurry up to the ticket counter so they can finally get the show on the road. Out of nowhere, Usagi grabs Hajime's hand, causing him to instantly freeze up in total, blushing surprise. She pulls him along by the hand, leaving poor Hajime completely flustered as he stammers out, asking what on earth she's doing. Hajime panics and quickly pulls his hand away, immediately apologizing for his awkward reaction to her sudden touch. Usagi blushes softly, telling him that she's willing to do absolutely anything he wants today, leaving Hajime completely stunned by such a bold promise. Hajime hesitates for a moment, his eyes wide as his mind races over her incredibly bold proposal. They take a quick pause at a local shop to grab some limited edition bentos for their grand journey ahead. The local train for Kokura pulls smoothly into the station, ready to carry them away on their little adventure. Seated to Usagi excitedly points out at the passing scenery, eagerly telling Hajime to look out the window at the gorgeous view. The train rolls beautifully past the landscape as Usagi gets a little nostalgic, reminiscing about the childhood days she spent in this very region. She laughs out loud while recalling the days she spent playing with the local dogs. Hajime listens intently, finding the mental image completely charming and sweet. They share a quiet, beautifully comfortable moment just watching the world rush by. Hajime softly agrees that it feels amazing to finally just relax for a while. Usagi reflects a bit on her chaotic work life, noting that even her travels usually feel like just another boring commute. She quietly admits she's never spent time quite like this before. Usagi turns to Hajime with a truly radiant smile, sweetly confessing that she is having a fantastic time just being with him. Then, Usagi playfully tells him not to get too ahead of himself, reminding him with a wink that the main event is still waiting. The pair finally reaches the entrance to the mysterious Senbutsu cave, and Usagi completely celebrates their arrival. Usagi points at the cave entrance with pure excitement, while Hajime steps up to handle the admission fees at the ticket booth. Usagi remarks on how easy it is to enter the limestone cave, happily noting the lack of annoying crowds during the off-season. The quiet, cool, and dim atmosphere of the ancient cave begins to settle over them as they push forward to explore. Hajime points out just how much Usagi seems to love enclosed spaces, and she readily admits that she finds the cave incredibly cozy and relaxing. Usagi jokingly declares that she has a natural instinct to crawl into any little hole she finds, leaving poor Hajime totally flustered. She claims the cave feels like their own little private hideaway, telling Hajime that she feels completely safe in these quiet surroundings. Usagi leans in real close, whispering that the total isolation makes it feel like they're the only two people left in the whole wide world. Seeing Hajime's completely stunned, breathless expression, Usagi quickly laughs it off, admitting her comment might have been a bit too intense. Ouch! Usagi lets out a sharp little cry after accidentally slamming her head straight against the low ceiling of the cave. Hajime instantly rushes over in a total alarm, checking frantically to see if she's alright after the painful impact. Usagi laughs off the pain, sheepishly admitting she simply wasn't paying enough attention to her surroundings. Hajime lets out a soft sigh to himself, clearly a bit embarrassed by her sudden display of cute clumsiness in the dark. Usagi sweetly reassures him, saying she finds his genuine concern totally endearing and really likes that protective side of him. She tilts her head curiously, wondering aloud if Hajime is actually trying to tease her with all his sweet words. Hajime quickly denies the accusation, eagerly insisting he is genuinely just trying to give her a proper compliment. Hajime breathes a massive sigh of relief, hoping his earnest explanation was finally enough to clear the air between them. Usagi stares back at him with a soft, tender expression, finally accepting his explanation as the absolute truth. Soon, they trudge deeper into the icy cave water, shivering a bit as they push forward into the mysterious dark. Hajime hands Usagi a flashlight, noting that the winding path ahead of them has become completely pitch black. Suddenly, they encounter a terrifyingly claustrophobic section labeled as the Hell Tunnel, and Usagi is visibly unsettled by the eerie atmosphere. Despite the daunting, narrow look of the opening, Usagi remains completely undeterred and eagerly pushes forward into the gap. Hajime follows closely behind, completely unable to look away from the view as Usagi navigates the ultra-tight space. Oh no! Usagi lets out a sudden cry of pain as she unexpectedly hits her head right against the ceiling of the tight tunnel. Hajime rushes in to check on her, his intense concern totally evident as he asks if she's okay after the collision. The pair reaches a brand new section, and Usagi nervously points out how the cave walls are closing in hard from both sides. Hajime stares at the tightening passage, his face turning pale as he seriously doubts whether Usagi can actually squeeze through this one. Usagi is momentarily stunned by just how narrow it is, but she quickly tries to reassure him, confirming that she can just barely fit. Usagi confidently claims the passage is an absolute breeze, while Hajime watches in silent, growing alarm as she suddenly gets completely stuck. Usagi quickly realizes she has pushed her luck just a bit too far, sheepishly admitting that she's definitely seen enough for today. Hajime desperately tries to stop her from moving, warning her that trying to back out right now will only make their situation a whole lot worse. The absolute inevitable happens as Usagi becomes completely, tightly wedged in the solid rock wall. Sheer panic sets in for the both of them, but will this terrifying, claustrophobic trap be the absolute end of their journey together? Usagi finds herself completely trapped inside the narrow rock wall, unable to move even a single muscle. Panic quickly sets in as she desperately demands a quick way out of the suffocating, tight enclosure. Poor Hajime is pressed right up against her, struggling just to breathe as he finds his face completely buried in her chest. Wedged tightly together, Usagi can't help but notice the sudden, intense contrast between her soft chest and his firm, cool stomach. Hajime desperately tries to clear his racing mind, fiercely telling himself that this is absolutely not the time for such distracted thoughts. Even Usagi softly admits she's starting to have some pretty inappropriate thoughts, leaving Hajime struggling to maintain any ounce of composure in their tight spot. Suddenly, Usagi cries out in pain as a sharp, jagged rock digs right into her waist, narrowly avoiding an even more serious injury. Tears quickly well up in her eyes as she desperately searches for any possible path to freedom from this suffocating stone prison. Hajime is completely startled when Usagi suddenly calls out his name, her trembling voice echoing loudly inside the narrow tunnel. Finally reaching her absolute breaking point, Usagi makes a wild request, pleading for Hajime to unhook her bra in a desperate attempt to gain some breathing room. Hajime stares back in absolute, utter disbelief, completely unable to process the request as the situation spirals wildly out of control. Usagi urgently explains that it's a front-class design, meaning the hook is actually right within his reach. She insists that undoing it might just create enough space for her to slip away from the trap. With absolutely no time to lose, she begs him to roll up her shirt and undo the clasp, using his mouth. Hajime frantically fights to keep his composure, internally questioning why on earth he feels so flustered by her crazy plan. Trying to convince himself his motives are purely practical, he slowly leans in to follow her frantic instructions. The tension reaches an absolute peak the moment Hajime makes contact, and Usagi lets out a sharp, involuntary cry of surprise. She urges him to keep going, even as the intensely intimate nature of the situation completely overwhelms them both. With a sudden, sharp snap, the clasp finally gives way, giving Usagi the desperate release she so badly needed. Hajime cheers in absolute triumph as the two of them finally tumble out of the narrow, suffocating rock passage. Finally free, Usagi collapses into the open space, completely breathless and dazed by the sheer intensity of their escape. But the relief is short-lived as they find themselves in a seriously compromising position, leading to an immediate, panicked apology from Hajime. Usagi playfully teases him about his reaction, her melodic voice cutting through the quiet air as they fully emerge from the tunnel. Standing outside, Usagi happily announces that things are back to normal, even though both of them are still visibly soaked from the ordeal. Hajime looks down, clearly embarrassed and deeply apologetic for the intimate circumstances of their narrow escape. Usagi just brushes it off with a warm smile, dismissing the whole chaotic event as a natural part of an unpredictable trip. She cutely suggests they look back on this as a fond memory, while Hajime remains totally overwhelmed by the day's intensity. Shifting the mood, Usagi rather shyly requests that he just completely forget the specific details of how they actually escaped. The pair suddenly happens upon an outdoor ashtray, offering a perfect, welcome opportunity to finally settle down after the chaos. Usagi happily proposes a smoke break in the warm sun to dry off, and a relieved Hajime eagerly agrees to the reprieve. Sitting close together, they reflect on the jarring, crazy shift from a life-or-death struggle to this peaceful, quiet moment. Usagi happily munches on a sweet bun, completely savoring the snack while enjoying their quiet time together. Usagi wonders aloud what they should do next, and Hajime eagerly suggests hitting the shops to keep their momentum going. When asked what she'd like, Usagi pauses to think before deciding that a cute new hair clip would be perfect. She explains that she usually just sticks to simple ties for her braids, but she honestly feels like trying something a bit cuter today. Hajime beams with pure excitement at the suggestion, clearly thrilled to help her pick out something special. Usagi jokingly asks if he'd rather wear a giant beetle on his head instead, making Hajime instantly panic at the hilarious thought. Hajime quickly pivots right back to the original plan, asking if she wants to head out and buy those hair clips this very second. Usagi hesitates, shyly admitting she has a terrible habit of losing accessories immediately, leaving her totally unsure about the purchase. Hajime looks down at his phone, feeling totally dejected, and suggests they might just need to rethink their plans. Seeing his disappointment, Usagi gives a cheerful thumbs up, sweetly promising that if he picks it out, she will absolutely treasure it forever. At the store, Usagi carefully contemplates two different hair clip styles, weighing the merits of each for her new look. Usagi presents the lovely options to Hajime, cutely asking him to decide which one he finds more appealing. Hajime carefully studies the clips, while Usagi waits with a slightly pouty, highly expectant little expression. Hajime points confidently to the second clip, assuring Usagi that it matches her unique vibe perfectly. Usagi turns around, striking a pose to ask if he truly believes that choice makes her look prettier. Hajime stammers in utter panic while Usagi leans in close, demanding a straight answer to her question. Hajime flushes deep red and finally admits he thinks she looks incredibly cute, leaving Usagi absolutely delighted. Usagi immediately reaches for the chosen clip, happily announcing she's going to buy it right now. But Hajime firmly insists on paying for it, nervously explaining that he really wants to treat her today. Hajime anxiously asks if the gesture is a bit too much, but Usagi shyly smiles and agrees to accept his kindness. Hajime hands over the shopping bag, and Usagi accepts it with a huge grin, clearly thrilled by the sweet gesture. Usagi presses the bag tightly to her chest, promising Hajime that she will treasure this gift for the rest of her entire life. Hajime is completely blindsided by her emotional pledge. He stammers in complete disbelief, struggling to process the immense weight of her words. Checking his phone, Hajime notes that it's getting pretty late and gently suggests they wrap up their day of shopping. They exchange casual, sweet goodbyes before parting ways, Usagi stepping away into the settling evening air. Suddenly, Usagi pauses to tell Hajime that he was actually incredibly cool today. She looks deeply impressed, leaving him totally flushed and flustered. She strikes a confident, playful pose, warning him that the next time they go out, she fully intends to be the one taking the lead. Hajime stands frozen on the spot as the realization finally hits him. His heart hammers wildly against his ribs as he wonders, was their entire day together actually a real date? Usagi arrives at work the next morning, greeting her colleagues with a bright, beaming smile and a cheerful wave. Ogami-kun notices her right away, while someone else points out that she's still wearing that cute hair clip from yesterday. Usagi greets Ogami-kun warmly, her eyes completely lighting up the moment she spots him. She leans in close, her face flushing a bit as she coyly asks if he's forgotten to say something important to her. Ogami-kun stammers in a total panic, his face turning bright red as he scrambles to compliment her look. Usagi gives him a confident thumbs up, brightly declaring she's ready to absolutely crush the day ahead. Ogami-kun salutes her with newfound determination, looking fully committed to following her lead. Later on, Hibaim-san approaches them, thanking Usagi for her help last week with a relaxed, friendly smile. Ogami-kun finds himself staring intensely at the back of Hibaim-san's neck, totally lost in thought. Hibaim-san playfully asks if she's giving off some kind of pheromone vibe, before revealing her earrings are actually dried sardines. Hibaim-san confirms that her sardine earrings are indeed completely edible, leaving Ogami-kun utterly stunned by the revelation. She winks playfully, teasing Ogami-kun that her being edible doesn't mean he has permission to take a bite. Ogami-kun insists he has absolutely no intention of eating anything, while his coworkers watch the whole exchange with intense, unblinking stares. Ogami-kun sends a quick text inviting Usagi to join him for a lunch he prepared, and she eagerly accepts the invitation. Usagi stretches out at her desk right as the clock strikes noon, signaling the start of her break and their exciting lunch plans. Ogami-kun prepares to leave with his lunch bag, but he's abruptly stopped by a sudden, demanding voice from behind him. Two of his coworkers, Mamatabi and Tori, corner him right there in the hallway, looking completely determined to get answers. Ogami-kun starts sweating profusely, desperately wondering what on earth his colleagues could possibly want from him so suddenly. Mamatabi and Tori corner him tightly, prying into his recent interactions with the tall, gorgeous Takatsuki-senpai and the mysterious Hibaim-san. Ogami-kun just stares back in utter confusion, completely bewildered by this sudden, dramatic interrogation regarding his social life. Ogami-kun sweats nervously, wondering why his coworkers are misinterpreting his everyday life as a series of cryptic, romantic events. His colleagues immediately jump straight to the most scandalous conclusions, assuming his romantic life has already moved into the bedroom. Ogami-kun recoils, stammering in total denial while Usagi sweetly clings to him, completely oblivious to the awkward tension filling the hallway. He tries his best to brush off their wild accusations, but his frantic, overly formal tone only makes the office gossip mill spin faster. Mamatabi and Tori corner him completely, demanding he spill every single intimate detail about his love life by the end of the night. Ogami-kun retreats to a quiet stairwell with Usagi, lamenting that his evening plans have suddenly spun completely out of his control. He hangs his head in defeat, offering a deeply sincere apology for the complicated situation they found themselves in. Usagi stares at him in total confusion, completely baffled as to why he feels the need to apologize for her presence. She gently reminds him that she promised to be right by his side every single day, brushing off his anxiety as a simple misunderstanding. Ogami-kun smiles softly, confessing that he could never forget the beautiful day they first met, cementing their bond even further. Usagi tells Ogami not to worry about her at all, encouraging him to head off and just enjoy his lunch with his colleagues. Ogami apologizes for all the chaos, but his intense hunger begins to drown out his words as his stomach audibly grumbles. Usagi hands over the lunch container, deeply eager for him to finally see the special meal Shivii prepared. The box snaps open, revealing an incredibly adorable bento featuring a perfectly crafted character shaped like a little rabbit. Ogami is completely stunned by the artistry, while Usagi snaps photos, shyly admitting she got a little carried away in the kitchen. With a bashful look, Ogami admits that he would absolutely love to see her actually taste the meal she worked so hard to create. Usagi steals her nerves and lifts a small bite with her chopsticks, but as she prepares to eat, a sudden, unexpected sensation stops her completely cold. Usagi totally savors the meal, but she can't help but mourn the tragic destruction of her meticulously crafted bunny bento. She struggles with a hilarious mix of pure joy and absolute heartbreak, while Ogami watches her dramatic display with a gentle smile. Ogami attempts to push a large sum of cash toward her to cover the costs, but she instantly shoots him down with a firm refusal. Ogami insists she just treat him to another meal sometime in the future instead of taking the cash. Usagi gets visibly flustered, excitedly suggesting a lavish, multi-course dinner as their next potential date before quickly trying to backpedal. With the delicious meal completely finished, the empty bento container is set aside with a definitive clack. They share a sweet, pleasant moment of appreciation for the lunch, both already looking forward to their next cute culinary exchange. The scene shifts to later that evening, where colleagues offer their well wishes as the group heads out for the big rookie mixer. The drinks are barely raised for a toast before the group immediately pivots to interrogating Ogami about his private life. Though they claim to totally respect his privacy, they just cannot help but press for juicy answers, leaving Ogami trapped in the awkward spotlight. The coworkers settle into the private room, totally eager to move past formalities and dive into a whole night of personal inquiries. Usagi confesses her recent obsession with handicrafts, though she sighs and admits she struggles to maintain interest in any single project for long. Ogami shifts the topic to his own passion for physical exercise, proudly claiming he can handle everything from ball games to full marathons. Usagi completely surprises everyone by revealing her secret hobby is cosplay, though she quickly clarifies that her costumes are far from being the sexy kind. She proudly displays a photo of her latest creation, leaving the entire group stunned by the intense level of detail and undeniable cuteness of her outfit. Ogami is utterly floored when he learns that Usagi actually crafted the entire costume completely by herself, deeply impressed by her dedication. Usagi continues to probe the group, excitedly suggesting that everyone should try their hand at cosplay, which leaves Ogami feeling slightly uneasy. The conversation takes an intense turn as Usagi turns her focus directly toward Ogami, mischievously hinting that he should join in on the fun. Ogami is caught completely off guard, stammering in utter confusion as he realizes he has suddenly become the absolute center of her attention. Usagi leans in close and bluntly asks if he has any interest in cross-dressing, leaving a panicked Ogami frantically scrambling for a way out. Mamatabi corners Ogami, highly praising his slender and fit physique, while gushing that he would look absolutely gorgeous in a costume. Ogami desperately asks if Mamatabi is drunk, but she only leans in even closer, calling him a charming little mini cutie. Without warning, Mamatabi suddenly lunges forward and takes a wild bite out of Ogami's shoulder, causing him to cry out in pain. A colleague watches the bizarre display in total disbelief, frantically questioning if Mamatabi has actually developed feelings for Ogami. Mamatabi completely brushes off the concern, bluntly stating that she isn't interested in the colleague, but finds Ogami's body perfectly suited to her specific tastes. Torai-kun, feeling totally ignored and deeply offended, loudly demands to know why he isn't considered an option. Mamatabi offers a cold, brutal dismissal, telling Torai-kun that his body simply isn't her type at all, leaving him gagging in complete defeat. Torai-kun erupts into dramatic tears, loudly complaining about how totally unfair it is that Ogami receives all of Mamatabi's attention. Mamatabi stares back with a hollow, intense gaze, softly acknowledging that the situation is indeed unfair for everyone else. Momotaro begins to unbutton her shirt, signaling that she is about to take things even further with a visibly trembling Ogami. Momotaro continues to unbutton her shirt, boldly inviting a completely stunned Ogami to just go ahead and consume her. Ogami recoils in absolute terror, shouting at her to stop and put her clothes back on immediately. Ignoring his frantic protest, Momotaro lunges forward with intense energy, declaring that she will take the lead. Torai-kun cries out in pain after receiving a sharp slap, while Momotaro coldly rejects his desperate advances yet again. Torai-kun finally snaps, demanding Ogami take his place as he unbuttons his own shirt in a total fit of defeat. Ogami is pushed completely to his limit, shouting that he has absolutely no intention of eating anyone at all. The group finally pauses to acknowledge the absolute chaos, agreeing to move past the awkward confrontation to focus on their work. Momotaro and her colleague share a supportive thumbs up, promising to look out for each other despite all the madness. Ogami offers a bright, relieved smile, expressing his genuine excitement to continue working alongside them. The group exchanges awkward, hasty goodbyes as they finally part ways, leaving the bizarre encounter behind. Ogami smiles, genuinely relieved that the chaotic encounter ended with everyone parting on friendly terms. He realizes these are the first true friends he has actually made since arriving in Fukuoka. Suddenly, a creeping doubt sets in, making him question where Usagi-san actually fits into his life. His heart begins to race wildly, and he wonders if this deep, confusing connection is actually something much, much more.